Hi, my name's Shelley. I'm from Mrs Baker's Cake School, and today I'm going to show you how to make a small rose. The rose that I'm going to show you is made by simply using some very simple equipment that you will generally have within your cake cupboard. I've got some CMC powder. This is actually Debbie Brown's magic powder. It is CMC powder and can be found at most of your cake stores, but if you'd like to buy some of Debbie's own one, you can find it on a website which is debbiebrownscakes.co.uk. The CMC powder basically helps the fondant go hard and firm up and form a solid shape. If you've made cakes before and you've placed decorations onto the cakes and come back later and found that they've wilted, they've gone droopy and not very nice, that's generally down to the fact that they need some CMC powder in there to help them along. Secondly, I've obviously got the fondant. This one I've already pre-treated just to save you time sitting there watching me pop in the CMC powder in there. So that's already pre-treated. It's 1 teaspoon per 250 grams worth of fondant. Okay, next I have a water brush. These are really good. You can buy them in Hobbycraft or most art shops. But generally all they are is a pen basically with some water in the nib there. You can fill them up yourself and just a little squeeze and you actually get the water to go down. Okay, next we've got a nice palette knife. This one is very small and it's a very fine knife, as you can see. You can use any dinner knife, a craft knife, or a palette knife works really, really well. This is just for taking off the bottom of excess fondant. And my magic ingredient is just a plain document wallet. This is the ones where obviously you slide your documents in. You can buy them in all stationery shops. These ones are from Tesco's. They're in a packet of 50 for something like £2. Really, really inexpensive. I have gone for the better quality one. You can buy really, really cheap ones that have a funny texture to them, and as you're making your roses, that texture then goes onto your rose petals, which is really not nice. This is a lovely, smooth, silky, just a nice plain plastic. Let's get started. I'm going to get the paste warmed up. The real key with making roses is to make sure that your fondant is really nice and pliable. This comes from the warmth from your hands and from you squeezing the paste. If your fondant is dry, cold, and generally quite stiff, then you're going to find that you're going to get cracks on your petals and it's not going to look very good at all. As I said, this has already been pre-treated with a CMC paste. If you do that, when you leave your roses for probably about 2 hours, they're generally quite good on even buttercream cakes. As you can see, it's a nice stretch now to my fondant. This is the sort of consistency that you are looking for. I'm going to pop that down. I'm going to take a small ball of the fondant, roll it into a nice ball. I'm going to make this rose quite big, but you can do the same principle on very, very small roses. You really don't have to worry about doing them as big as what I'm doing now. This is just simply so that I can show you on the camera and show you the detail that you need to see. Okay, so you've got your little ball of fondant. Take your document wallet. I tend to have mine turned so that I can open it this way. I just find being right-handed, it does make it easier for me. But you do exactly what you find easiest. There is no right or wrong way of doing things. How I'm showing you is just how I find it easy. Okay, so pop that ball in. First of all, obviously you can't make a petal from a ball, so we need to flatten it down. I tend to push down and roll my finger in a circle a couple of times. You'll see then that petal is still quite thick all the way around. I'm hoping you can still see that on the camera. Don't worry about the little tear there. If you get any little tears in the fondant, all you need to do is remember that that will then become the base of the petal. Okay? The base of the petal, to make sure that the flower itself stays quite nice and sturdy, needs to be a little bit thicker, just so that it gives it a nice centre of it. The edge of the petal, you want to go as thin as you possibly can. This makes it look more delicate and it makes it more pliable when you're folding over any of the edges. Okay, so because there's a little nick there, I'm going to go and have this edge as the outside of my petal. So all you need to do is you've got it going down and it's a nice rounded shape. If you do find you get an oblong, you can roll the ball up again. Don't forget, you're never finished until you're happy with something, so you can roll it back up and start again. So I first of all rolled it all out into this thickness that I want. Then I'm going to take my finger just along 3 sides. If you think of the circle almost like a box, strange idea I know, but it kind of works. So you've got this side, this side, this side and this side. These three you want to rub down nice and thin. You are really putting a lot of pressure down there, and go straight across as well. Make it nice and smooth. So this bit here is still very thick. This bit here is paper thin, okay? Right, then you open up, lift your pocket away. If it does stick, just tease that away and open it out, okay? I'm going to make this the core of your rose. So the thicker part is done at the base. I'll take my water pen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a tiny bit of water just down that fine edge, just to seal the first part of the bud. I'm going to put some here at the base. So as I'm rolling, it's going to stick. You really don't need very much at all. It's just I'm using a new pen, so I've done that just to make sure plenty comes out. First of all then, you roll over that fine edge. You want to bring it right in on itself like the very bud of the rose, and then roll it across your fingers. Okay, as you'll see, the centre of the rose is starting to take shape. Okay, I'm going to pop that to one side. That part's done. Because you've got lots of excess at the bottom, I've just stood that one up on its own. I'm going to take another ball of the paste. Between each petal, I am going to make sure that the paste is still pliable. At home you may want to pop this paste into a plastic bag. I won't do it while I'm doing the video, just so that you don't sit there listening to me rustling away. Okay, so just again, you're going to flatten that petal down, make it nice and round. When you're happy with the thickness, go around the other three sides. Hopefully you can see that there. You'll notice I'm using this hand to hold down the pocket, just so you don't get any slipping. It makes it a lot easier for you. So three sides, nice and thin. Okay, keep the base facing you. I always keep the base facing me. It makes it so much easier to remember where you are. A little bit on either side, a little bit in the centre. Okay. Fold that in on itself. I want to bring it right over and across, so that becomes the centre of your rose. Notice I'm not folding it together at the top, just at the base. This keeps it nice and open and really pretty. Okay, so pop that one down. As you'll see just now, it's really quick to rectify any mistakes that you make. That's probably a bit too much there. Let's pop that bit across there. I don't think it helps that my hands are a little bit warm today. Okay, so we're going to push down there so you're happy with the size of the petal, and then make sure those three edges are nice and thin. Okay, fattest edge towards you, either side, and a little bit down the centre. Remember the V you're going to put in the middle and slightly down. If you look where I've just done it there, there's not much going above, and you're just going to cut them sides just around the edge. That's much better, look. Then all I do, because that looks quite plain and boring, I've actually started to pull that just back just slightly. You want to try and tip the edge of the petal over and back on itself, and then just gently tease that into a point at the end. Okay, as we build on the rose, that will make it open out and make it look more realistic. Okay, just going to pop that down on the side. I'm going to do a few more petals as we go. I find the best way to do the petals is to remember to always do everything in odd numbers. There's no real right way or wrong way to do them. If you do forget and you don't position them right, don't panic. There's nothing perfect about nature. Whenever you're looking at flowers, remember, everything looks different. It's the same as flowers as it is with people when you're making figures. Everybody and everything looks different. So you do them in the way that you find easiest. Okay, so we've got a nice thin petal. Again, a V of water and a little bit down the middle. Okay, this time I'm just going to go halfway around again. again, I'm putting the petals slightly higher than the centre. Okay, so glue that round, bring the edge of the petals back on themselves and into a point. As you can see, it's really starting to build up. The next petal will go here, and then I'll do a layer of 5 petals going around afterwards. Okay, so push down, get that nice round shape. As you can see, you do get the odd little bit of cracking there, but because you're going to make sure that the 3 edges are nice and paper thin, that bit of cracking that's at the bottom really doesn't matter. Okay. It doesn't matter which side you use, because you're using the plastic wallet, both sides are really nice and shiny. This is why I try and avoid using the corn flour if possible. But obviously, the warmer your hands get, the more they'll need. Okay, so just popping again on that edge, the petal being slightly higher than the flower. Just gives you room to make any adjustments like this. You can see there's a little nick on the side of that petal. Don't worry, this will all be hidden as you pull back that petal and put it into a nice point at the edge. I like to make sure those edges of that petal are just underneath. You'll notice when you've got a flower bud and it starts to open out, those petals roll back on themselves and go under. So this is what you need to achieve with your rose. You can stop here if you're looking for a nice small rose. The next layer that you do will be 5 petals, and then each layer after that will be another 5 petals. Just generally start staggering them in between where you've done them before. So you generally have one here, there'll be one around here, then there'll be one here, and they'll follow around. Okay? If you did want to finish there, all you need to do is take your palette knife and cut just straight through and against your fingers. You won't hurt yourself as long as you're using a palette knife, not a real one. And this will make the bottom of the rose nice and flat, and it'll make it easier to position on any cupcakes or real cakes. I'd say real cakes, that's silly, isn't it? Big cakes, I suppose I should say. Okay, just building out on that bell. I'll do some more petals. I'll show you. Okay, so down in your circle, nice and easy. It's still nice and thick. And then you do your 3 sides. So going around 3/4. Water down each edge just to grip that petal, and a tiny bit down the middle. We're going to pop that in between there, remembering to keep your petal just up slightly. And bring those edges back and under themselves and into a point. As you come out from that centre, keeping the bottom of your petal nice and thick is really important, because that's what holds it away from the internal structure. When you're making your rose, if you are holding those petals in at the top too much, you'll find you get more of just like a funnel with a spiral on the end, because all the petals will be right up and very, very close. If you only gather that petal round at the bottom, then you're going to find that the opening at the top becomes bigger the more layers that you do. I hope that makes sense to you. If anybody needs me to explain that, just email me. I do sometimes have some very odd ways of explaining things. Like I say, there's no steadfast way of doing things, this is just how I do them. Okay, so 3 lines of water. Let's go for one just there. Okay. And we're going to pull back the edges of that petal. As you can see, the more that you add on there, it gets really, really pretty. Make sure this paste, as it's been sat there for a few minutes, throw it on my apron. As it's been sat there for a few minutes, you do need to make sure it's really pliable again. Roll it in a ball, pop it into the circle again. Then, once you're happy with the size, roll 3 edges nice and smooth. As you'll see, where they get nice and thin, they get almost sort of feather-like and cracked, which looks very much like what you get on a real rose, especially some of the English roses. They're very pretty. Let's pop that one there. Okay, just bring back all those petals, bring it into the point. Then I'm going to have 2 more petals here, just to bring that out. But you can just keep adding more and more petals and bringing it out from the sides. Don't go too big on each petal. Don't be tempted to go bigger just to try and make the rose thicker. It doesn't tend to work. Instead, you'll get very floppy petals and a very delicate rose, which will break very easily. Okay, let's just pull that back. Okay, this petal is quite thin at the bottom. I've not left it thick enough. So I wonder if this will show you what happens if you go too thin. Sometimes they can wilt and not stick to the flower enough. Okay, nope, I got away with that one. As you can see, building it up bit by bit really does help. Take a pinch more. I'm going to keep this petal a little bit thicker at the base, just to give it a bit more of a stability there. Your petals, you don't need to go too much bigger with each layer. If you go too big, you'll find, like I said before, that they'll actually fall back on themselves and it'll be hard to actually get them to stick. So I'm going to pop one, actually we're going to go around this side, pop one there. Okay, so I lift the petal up first of all, because you do only want to curl back the very fine edges. Bring it into that point again. I don't know why I'm whispering. Okay, so I've got that ball there rolled. Let's go for another one. If you wondered why there was a jump in the video then, I had a phone call. Joys of working from home, hey? It beats the animal noises the children do when somebody calls though, which is always quite funny. I don't think I meant to laugh being the grown-up. It's hard not to though, they're very funny. Okay, so just popping on another petal. Make sure you don't go too high or you'll find it hard to get that petal to stick. Okay, so lifting up that petal and bringing back the edges on themselves. Okay, I'm going to leave them like that now. I think you'll agree it's quite a pretty rose. You can build out more, but because I'm not giving it any time to dry in between layers, I don't want to go too big. Otherwise I'll find that it'll actually fall back on itself. Best thing for you to do is, if you do want to make a really large rose, say around this sort of size, is go for larger petals to start with. Make sure they're thicker at the bottom to give them the stability. And if you go too big and you're finding that the petals are falling back and not sticking, let the layer before dry. Pop it into your drying tray, or if you don't have one of those, you can go to your supermarket and you'll actually be able to pick up the apple trays that you get with kind of really large domed sort of structure. Use one of those. Make sure you pop some cling film in there so that it doesn't actually touch anything that's had anything in there before, just for food hygiene reasons. But otherwise you'll be perfectly fine. Okay, I'm going to take off the bottom of the rose. As you can see, it's built up quite a lot, and if you were to pop that onto a cake, you're not going to get a nice flush effect. If you want to, because it's still soft, you can insert a cocktail stick into there, or you can actually just sort of mould that into a point, and then you can pop that into the cupcake, or you can just do what I'm going to do now and cut it off flat. So you're just pushing against yourself until it comes off flat, and then just pop it straight into your drying tray. As you can see, it's a really pretty rose. And this bit here, what do you do with that? Well, you just make more roses, don't you? I'll quickly show you another small rosebud, just so you can see how quick they are. I won't go through the instructions too much. I'll just show you very simply how quick I can knock up some roses. Let's get some water. Just fold in the bottom. Look how I don't touch the top of that petal. Okay. Just going to rub my finger in the rest of that cornflour. Get a bit sticky. These star roses are so simple to start out with. You can build up to doing things with the cutters and making really professional ones later on. But something like this is very quick and simple, and it's ideal for things like birthday cakes where you don't need them to be so grand and sort of realistic. I think they look quite pretty, especially when you've got the little buds building up like this. Okay, so your next one. I've been asked so many times to do a rose tutorial. I hope this has really helped you see how simple they are. Everybody seems to get very worried about attempting a rose for the first time. But it doesn't have to be so scary. I'll do 2 more petals. As you can see, I've not followed any rules about how many petals you should have on each layer. I've just gone with what feels right at the time. Okay, bring back all those edges, tease it into a nice point, a tiny bit more. Okay, that very edge, it's got to be really nice and fine. And keep that bottom bit really nice and thick. Look how thin the edge is in comparison. Hoping you can see that on the camera. Try not to lift my hands up too much. I don't want to go out of shot. Okay, last petal. Curl it back on itself and to the point. And then to go with the big rose, I'm just going to cut the bottom off and place it down. Let's pop that out of the way in a drying tray. Okay, I really hope this has helped you and you have a go at doing some nice little roses. At the end of this tutorial on the page I will pop some extra pictures on there for you to show you where I've used roses in the past. There'll be big cakes, there'll be small cakes as well, and these are ideal for either. Okay, thanks for watching, have fun.